This is starting. Okay, so this says that it's broadcasting. I tried to do the URL thingy that we talked, Matt, and I don't know, it didn't work for me. So I'm seeing that link, the one with the channel/live, but it says that the live stream is offline. I don't know what that means, or how to start a live stream from there instead of the usual way. Do you know how to fix this and have a permanent link? Matt, if you're speaking, you are muted. Okay. All right. Cool. Anyways, so for the rest of you, we tried to do something different today. Some people are saying that it's a little bit painful to have to be waiting last minute for the Hangouts link for this meeting. Try to fix that. Apparently, you have enough subscribers. YouTube will let you have a permanent URL in your channel. Did that, registered one, and couldn't make this work. Like, I don't know how to make the live stream go to that URL. So if anyone's watching this or knows how to fix this, I would appreciate the comments, and that would ease a little bit of the pain.
A hacky workaround for now could be that you have a URL or even a GitHub gist, for example, that you update every week, or you just paste the URL. That's an easy way to communicate to everyone all at once.
Yeah, that's true. I was thinking that if you can you check for a second, if any of you go to this URL, can you see in the chat on the right, can you see the link that I dropped there? Or do you get an empty chat?
I can see the link.
Okay, so I.
I don't see my message showing up, but...
Yeah, it just says for me live stream offline, but obviously we're live. So
yeah, I do see live chat, and then the thing you just pasted. Oh, and Matt Davis just commented there as well, but it's very confusing. Yeah, it says live in here, but if you go to the youtube.com/c/Matteo E0ipso/live, then it says that it's offline. Strange. And it seems to me that Matteo is frozen, because I can see Ted blinking, but I can't see Matteo move.
it's my blinking GIF.
Matteo frozen for anybody else?
Yes, he is. Oh, it's off. Oh, he's back.
Welcome back, Matteo.
Hi, now in tethering. Sorry, let's just go ahead. We'll figure this out and at some other point. Do you guys do something like Scrummy, or do you want to just do as usual?
Last week we did the decouple dev days update, right? So, okay, I was trying to remember.
So yeah, well, decouple dev days, that is very relevant. That happened. It was a blast, and thank you, Matt, for putting all that together, and all of the organizers. But I know that among the people that's here, you got pretty much involved. And yeah, it feels like there is a lot of momentum. I did feel that there wasn't a lot of mentions about REST core. I like people using it. I wonder if that is because people are using REST core in some other ways, but not using decoupled, not to build decoupled applications. And if we could understand, because I think that you, Wim, listed that many sites are using it, right?
So I was going to say something like that just now. So first of all, I wouldn't be surprised that there isn't much mention of core REST, because we have been, like you, myself, Ted, everybody basically has been saying for quite some time now that probably JSON API is a better way to do what you want to do. So it shouldn't be surprising that more people are talking about that, because it seems to be the next step. And we propose it as something to be added to Drupal core. So there are lots of signals to use JSON API instead of core REST. Plus, there's many things you can do with JSON API that you cannot with core REST, such as collections. So that is one thing. REST does seem to be used. If you look at the usage statistics of the REST UI module, so the optional contributed module to make it easier to configure core REST, then you see that it's growing. It's, I think, at an all-time high as of this week of 6,031. Drupal core itself also is growing at a new all-time high of 180,000 sites on Drupal 8. And JSON API is also growing, also at a new all-time high of 3,275. So I don't know how to explain this contradiction. It seems like everything is growing. I think many people are trying different ways. If I would have to guess, I would say that it's more likely that people who attend a forward-looking event, a developer event like Decoupled Dev Days, are probably also the kind of people who look for better solutions, and so are more inclined to talk about next things like JSON API, even if they maybe have been using REST already. But that's a complete guess. That's all I can add to that. Hope it was somewhat sensible.
Yeah, definitely.
I would probably also guess that people that we're not in touch with and that aren't aware of these events are probably the people that are more likely to use core REST, because if they're not aware of these events, then obviously they're probably less likely to find JSON API. So probably more likely to use core REST. Just it's like a discoverability problem.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So to summarize, a lot of well, to do a very quick summary of the event, many people seem to be using either GraphQL or JSON API to build decoupled applications. Not sure about other machine-to-machine data transfers. That may be a way of using core REST, but that is an interesting question, I think, which could add a little bit of clarity to do we need to add GraphQL and or JSON API to core? Because if the community believe that these two are the options and people are not using it because it doesn't come with core, then maybe it adds on top of the existing arguments that we want this in core eventually. So I guess that my next question is, I think that the policy changed for experimental modules. Do you think that the JSON API issue about adding it in core is still on track, or maybe it's still on pause? Because I think that 8.4 put everything on pause in that front, right?
Yeah, 8.4 put everything on hold in the sense that no new experimental modules were added, with the special exception of media. But basically nothing else could be added because we already had too many. And so adding more would spread ourselves thin, so both committers as well as the community at large. So for 8.5 that is different. For 8.5 it is again possible, I think, to add new modules to core, but there is a new requirement that is being considered currently by the framework managers, product managers, the core committers in general, which is that in the past it was the case that experimental modules could be added as being alpha modules. So basically alpha means anything can be changed. So there is no guarantees for, well, there can be backwards compatibility breaks, there can be complete API breaks, modules can be renamed, basically anything goes. And going forward, the idea is to require that they are at least beta level stability. So you have to provide upgrade paths between any code change if that is necessary. So migrate data, keep backwards compatibility for code calls, so PHP calls, and so on. So there are changes there. I do think that JSON API, given that it's already stable, as in it has a stable release, it means that it would be possible for it to be added as a beta level experimental module to 8.5. But of course, we need to jointly decide whether it makes sense to do that, because Matteo, you said yourself that you actually somewhat kind of like it being a contrib module because it means you can go much faster. That is still going to be true. And it's also going to be true for GraphQL or OpenAPI. It's going to be true for all of those. So I guess I would say if people are finding JSON API and they are using it, which seems to be the case, do you want to commit to having complete backwards compatibility support for every single thing that you may change in the future? Yes or no? If the answer is no, then probably it's going to be safer for your own mental health in the sense that it's going to be frustrating otherwise to keep it as contrib for now. So it depends on your own level of confidence in the module that you want to add as experimental, JSON API or otherwise.
Yeah, I don't want to expand much more on this conversation, but I used to feel that way. But given the current state of things, what we talked about, not many people are using REST or talking about using REST in a conference like Decoupled Dev Days kind of hints that we need a better solution in core, because that with the fact that many people are still using REST core, it kind of hints that we are maybe not promoting best practices. I don't know. I'm having those feelings. So that's where my head is at. So yeah, probably could be a good idea to keep moving that issue forward. But yeah, so Wim, we haven't had the core REST update for quite some time now. I believe that things are a little bit cooler than they used to be, but please, if you want to give anything to the meeting.
Yeah, nothing major. There has been some internal improvements that doesn't really make sense to go in detail on right now. There is significant work being done on 3 areas, I would say. The file upload issue, so being able to upload file entities, create file entities, so doing binary requests where you upload files of any size. That is still not supported in Drupal core, not in core REST, also not in JSON API, and I think not in GraphQL, but I'm not sure about that. In any case, core needs to solve that, and if core solves that, then it paves the path at least for JSON API. That is moving forward really well. Daniel has been working on config entity support. That is also still moving forward. And the third thing would be just in general progress on the various entity types test coverage. So test coverage for various kinds of entities that you can modify or read via REST, and ensuring that we don't regress in them. So change our HTTP responses, which would break client applications. So we're still moving forward with that. But nothing major has been committed, but those are the areas that are currently moving forward.
Awesome. There is this JSON API files module that will allow you to upload base64 encoded files. Still, I don't think it provides binary upload, but the feature is there.
Yep, that's a good workaround for now.
Yeah, and totally, it is a workaround for now until CoreREST kind of bubbles all that ability. Nice. Thank you very much, Wim. I want to take the chance and ask Phubi, because I know that GraphQL has done a lot of stuff lately.
We can't hear you, Sebastian, I think. You don't seem to be muted, but...
Yes, this should work better now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, just a lot of work going on. Nothing specific though. Trying to get some outstanding issues resolved. I went to the GitHub issue tracker and tagged some issues as release blockers. And once they are done, we'll go for release. The release is planned for Sunday before DrupalCon, so that we'll have the stable release at DrupalCon.
Wow, that's exciting.
This week, I'm also going to publish a blog post, including some information about a thing that we have been thinking about lately. The idea actually started like 2 years ago already at DrupalCon Barcelona. We briefly talked about it. Actually, Dries wrote a blog post also that contains the name that we gave it back then, like the Drupal data graph. And I want to start working on that now. So something that is actually more usable than type data, but uses type data internally and can be used to generate graph derivatives from the Drupal data model and in a unified format, so that things like Search API, JSON API, GraphQL, they can all use it to generate their underlying or their data access layer on top.
Cool. That would be like Sugar on top of type data, or you would add
on top
more
of many
features?
different things. On top of many different things. So type data is one source of truth for that graph, but obviously there's more things which aren't type data. Also, it would allow you to extend it with things that are completely unrelated to Drupal, in like external APIs or anything that is not described as type data inside of Drupal.
Okay, cool. Very exciting about that release pre-DrupalCon.
Will be released sometime this week with more info. I know it's a little bit abstract right now, but
yeah, I was just going to say that it sounds very abstract, but super interesting. So very much looking forward to reading that and bending all of our minds around what you're envisioning.
Cool. I will notify you guys.
Also, I noticed in Twitter that you were doing a call for companies that want to sponsor development on this, and I just want to relay the message here because some people may be listening to this. Do you want to post a link to the tweet here? I don't know if they can see the tweet, but anyways, if you are interested or your company is interested in sponsoring this, get in touch with Sebastian because we are going to use this in the future, I believe. Is there anything that you want to add about GraphQL?
I don't think so. Like technically around the module, there's no more information right now, but Jan, he's also on the Slack and he's working on content, I believe, as well. Has been working on a Vue.js and Nuxt.js based demo application with GraphQL, and he's very excited about it. And he's making it fully public, and it includes all of the code that he's currently using to build his own blog on Nuxt.js and GraphQL and Drupal 8. I can share that as well. There's like a documentation link. I think all of the other resources connected to that are linked from that document. Oh, yeah, the second link that I posted now.
Awesome. In general, just invite people to join the GraphQL channel in Slack and Jan, he's like a highly motivated individual, and he does really cool stuff. So I would recommend going through that Vue.js code. So thank you. So does anyone else have a topic or a conversation that they want to bring up?
I mentioned it last week, but we have a branch for adding GraphQL support to Reservoir. So we're still I'm looking at how to sort of simplify the installation and configuration of like the view modes. And I talked to Sebastian last week about it, and so I'm working on a suggestion he made. But if anybody is using Reservoir and is interested in GraphQL support, then I will give the issue here in a second. It's like feedback on sort of the ideas there.
Yeah, and I'm active on that issue as well, and talking to Phoebe and Sebastian and PM eLab, whose name I'm not sure what it is.
Philip Miller. That's
okay,
why.
so Philip and Sebastian. So Ted and I are discussing with them how we could possibly simplify it, or how we can ensure that the conceptual models, mental models, can be aligned or can be simplified, or I guess also just building our own understanding in trying to convey it in a simple enough way, because GraphQL is a complex but very powerful set of modules right now, and so I think Contenta is. I just listened actually to the podcast that Lullabot did with the Contenta people. Great podcast, by the way, Mateo. I think nobody else here nobody else on this call was on that podcast. But you also mentioned that you're looking into the integration of GraphQL into Contenta. So I imagine you're asking many of the same questions or making the same considerations as we are doing there. So it probably makes sense to align on that as well.
Yeah, and I totally like Sebastian already said, Jan is active in both sides, so he's probably going to be the main person of contact for that. Apart from everything that Reservoir, makes of those conversations, I think that this is Tim, and we're probably going to use the decisions that you arrived to. So
let's keep the cross-pollination going, just as it has so far.
Yeah, and we have a branch which doesn't, it just proves that it can be enabled and it can be used. And so far, I don't think we have built all the configuration needed to expose the recipes example thingy, but that could be something that we could do in the future. Yeah, cool. Thank you for bringing that up. That I totally forgot. Anyone else wants to bring up anything? Then I'm going to bring up some minor things about JSON API. There seems to be two issues that outstand above the rest. One is that in 8.4 there was a BC break in the date format. Timestamps are now serialized to ISO strings, and JSON API is not picking up that automatically. I don't think that JSON API should be opinionated in what is BC when it regards to basic data structures, normalizers for basic data structures. So it should follow whatever REST core delivers, and it's not, and hence the issue. And then the other thing is the data upload thing that Wim mentioned. JSON API is breaking the entity validation because we add the path to the download URL. That's considered a workaround, but the field is declared as a URI, and it's not validating because it should be a string, not the URI, because it's just a path from the root. And those are the two things that need to be fixed. And if anyone wants to jump in and help out with those, please feel free. Wim, I'm sure you have something.
Yeah, I was, so a very small nitpicky thing to say, but I kind of have to say it. JSON API is not really picking up on what core REST does. It is picking up on what the core serialization module is doing. So you don't need to have the REST module installed at all, because that would be an additional attack surface, if you will, or endpoint surface, HTTP surface, whatever you want to call it. So it's just a serialization module, and the BC flag is for the serialization module, which affects JSON API as well. So small detail, but quite important for some. I basically also just wanted to ask in general, what are the next steps for JSON API, besides those apparently very important bug fixes?
I'm not well. First, you're correct. I misspoke. I said REST. I should have said serialization. And second, those are kind of like not very big things right now, because one is only affecting a patch that is not yet committed to core, and the other one is kind of just a date format, which kind of they have been using the old date format. The next steps for JSON API, I think, is just to prove that it is indeed stable. Like, let it run without significant changes, and see that the issues or the issues that we consider that are important, like these two, are not related to existing code, but to things that change in the outer environment.
Sounds good. That's kind of exactly what I was hoping you were going to say, because for core REST we are getting to the point where almost every entity type does have what we call comprehensive test coverage, in the sense that for every entity type we have test coverage that goes through a very complex scenario of making incorrect requests and ensuring that the response says to the developer, you made a mistake, this thing, you don't have permission to do this, or you forgot this field, or this field contains a nonsensical value. Like, you get specific error messages. That's very important. I think one of the things that would allow JSON API to kind of reach the next level of stability was if it would have similar test coverage. And if we do that for core REST, it actually paves the path for JSON API, because many of the problems that we found for core REST are actually problems in the entity type definitions and in entity API, field API, access API, routing API, all of those things, and we have fixed them, or we have fixed many of them. It's not 100% done yet. But so it should mean that it's much easier for JSON API to achieve the same level of test coverage, minus all the pain, hopefully, fingers crossed. And so maybe that would be a good next area for us to tackle. You should be able to copy paste, if you will, large bits, and then have really good test coverage.
I won't have the bandwidth to take on a task like that in the near future. However, it would be awesome if you can create a placeholder for a meta issue in the JSON API issue queue. So,
okay.
People are looking for ways to contribute. That's an awesome way to do it. I feel like REST did most of the work on uncovering the tricky things, so those are going to be already fixed. But like, there's a point where the code bases are different, and we need to taste those code paths.
Yep, exactly, because JSON API supports collections and filtering, and core REST does not, and you want to have test coverage for that as well, I would imagine. So there's definitely more to be done there. But cool, I will create an issue for that and probably provide some patches to get us started.
Yeah, there's test coverage about all that, but it's not like this gigantic matrix of entity type, different ways of accessing it with errors and without. So, the tests say the tests definitely exercise those code paths, but they don't do it in a gazillion different ways, which is what we would like.
Yep.
Cool. So I don't think I have any other parting thoughts. So if anyone wants to add anything else, please do it quickly. If not, I'm going to say bye. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.